Reality becomes urgent again the moment silence about it feels like a loss rather than a relief. Welcome to another story in the series From Wonder to Power, The Journey of Thought. Today, I want to show you how philosophy returns to metaphysics after doubt, not by force of argument, but by a shift in orientation. After skepticism, tranquility has been secured by restraint. Judgment is suspended. Claims are softened. The soul rests. Yet something remains unresolved. Living without certainty may calm the mind, but it does not explain why anything appears at all, or why the search for meaning keeps resurfacing even when belief is withheld. Middle Platonism and Neoplatonism emerge from this pressure, asking whether reality itself might be grounded not in propositions, but in spirit. These thinkers return to Plato without repeating him. They accept the skeptic's warning against dogmatism, yet refuse to stop at appearance. Instead of proving what is, they seek participation in it. Reality is no longer approached as an object to be mastered, but as a hierarchy of presence, flowing from a single source of intelligibility. Thought becomes assent again, but now inward rather than argumentative. This episode begins where reason reaches its limit and does not retreat. Philosophy turns towards spirit, not as belief imposed, but as the principle that makes meaning possible at all. At first light, in a quiet quarter of Alexandria, where temples, libraries, and markets press against one another, Ammonius watches the city wake. Sailors shout orders, scribes ready their tablets, priests wash their hands. Everything moves, yet not in the same way. Some lives turn around trade and survival, others around learning, ritual, contemplation. The difference feels deeper than habit. It feels structural, as if reality itself were layered. Middle Platonism gives this intuition a language. Being, Ammonius learns, is not evenly spread. Reality unfolds by degree, not by opposition. At the summit stands the highest principle, pure intellect, or the One, untouched by lack or change. From it flows mind, then soul, then the material world. Nothing is produced by force. Everything emanates by necessity, as light radiates from a source without diminishing it. The lower does not resist the higher. It depends on it. This vision reshapes how Ammonius reads the world. Matter no longer looks like chaos set against spirit, but its most distant expression. The body is not an enemy, only a faint echo. Disorder is not rebellion, but attenuation. Watching a craftsman shape wood, he sees form meeting resistance. Listening to music, he senses harmony descending into sound. Each level mirrors what stands above it, less clearly, yet recognizably. Human life finds its place within this scale. Ammonius understands himself as a soul suspended between worlds, pulled downward by habit and desire, drawn upward by intellect and recollection. Philosophy becomes a work of orientation rather than discovery. To think is to remember what the soul already participates in. Moral failure is not crime, but forgetfulness. Moral effort is ascent, a return through layers toward unity. Seen from above, a synthesis takes shape. Middle Platonism and Neoplatonism turn Plato's ideas into a living metaphysics of flow. Reality becomes a hierarchy of presence, bound by emanation rather than command. Spirit is not one being among others. It is the principle through which all being unfolds. As the sun climbs and the city thickens with noise, Ammonius turns inward. The world remains the same. Its depth has changed. What once seemed scattered now appears ordered by distance from the source. As night deepens and the lamps of the city flicker below, Plotinus sits alone, unmoving. Thought slows until it almost dissolves. Words no longer feel sharp enough to follow. What he seeks cannot be pointed at, defined or described without distortion. Every name already feels like too much. In Neoplatonic teaching, the One stands beyond being, beyond intellect, beyond all distinction. It is not the highest thing among others, but the source that makes things possible at all. To call it one is already a concession to language, a gesture towards simplicity that cannot be captured. The One does not think, choose, or act. It overflows. From its fullness, reality proceeds, not by decision, but by necessity. Plotinus does not treat this as speculation. It is orientation. The world appears fragmented because it stands at a distance from unity. Multiplicity is not evil, only weakened. Each level of reality carries less of the source, as light fades the farther it travels from its origin. Intellect reflects the One most clearly. Soul reflects it less. Matter lies at the furthest edge, where unity barely holds. This absolute principle reshapes how value is understood. Nothing competes with the One because nothing stands beside it. Comparison belongs only to what is already divided. The good is not one property among others, but the condition that allows anything to be desirable at all. To seek the good is, whether one knows it or not, to seek return. Ethics becomes reorientation, a movement away from dispersion and toward simplicity. Seen from above, a decisive turn takes place. Philosophy releases explanation and moves toward assent. Knowledge reaches a point where it must fall silent. What remains is not ignorance, but participation without mediation. The highest truth is not something to be known, it is something to be entered. As the city sleeps, Plotinus rises. Nothing has been added to his understanding. Something has been left behind. At dawn, before the city resumes its demands, Theodora sits by a window where light enters without effort. She is not praying as the temples teach, nor reasoning as the schools require. Thought has not stopped, but it no longer moves step by step. It gathers inward, as if recognizing something already present. What unfolds is not ecstasy, but a clear stillness, you see. In Neoplatonic teaching, intellect is not merely a human tool. It is a level of reality itself, the first unfolding of the One into knowable form. Within intellect, knower and known are not divided. To understand is not to represent something external, but to coincide with it. Knowledge does not pile up information, it simplifies. Each act of true understanding removes distance rather than crossing it. This mysticism does not reject reason, it completes it. Discursive thinking prepares the ascent by ordering attention, clearing confusion, and training the soul to endure coherence. When this preparation reaches its limit, thinking turns into seeing. Concepts fall away, not because they were mistaken, but because they have done their work. What remains is intellectual presence, stable and undisturbed. Theodora experiences this as a moment outside time. There is no argument to pursue and no conclusion to defend. The intellect rests in what it contemplates. Difference continues to exist in the world, but it no longer governs the inner life. Desire quiets. Fear loses its grip. The soul aligns itself with what does not change. Seen from above, the character of this mysticism becomes clear. It is not emotional excess or visionary spectacle. It is sobriety at its highest intensity. Knowledge and being converge without display. Philosophy reaches its oldest promise, not mastery over reality, but return to its source. As the light strengthens and the city begins to stir, Theodora rises. Speech returns. Distinctions reappear, yet something remains intact, carried silently into the day. As evening bells fade and the streets grow quieter, Aelius walks the colonnade he has followed many times before. Once he studied philosophy to argue more sharply, to interpret texts with precision, to prevail in disputes among students and teachers. Now, the practice feels altered. Each question no longer opens outward toward debate, but inward toward origin. In Neoplatonic thought, philosophy is not the construction of a system, but a movement of return. The soul, having descended through levels of reality, carries within itself a memory of its source. This memory is not recall in time, but orientation in being. Aelius learns that study, discipline, and reflection are not ends. They purify. Each false attachment, confused desire, or careless judgment scatters the soul. Philosophy gathers what life disperses. The path is gradual and demanding. Aelius moderates appetite not because the body is evil, but because excess fractures attention. He disciplines thought not to dominate others, but to quiet inner noise. Ethical practice and intellectual clarity converge. To live unjustly is to divide oneself. To think carelessly is to forget one's place in the order of things. Philosophy becomes a way of life ordered toward simplification. As understanding deepens, effort gives way to alignment. The ascent is not a climb driven by will, but a release of weight. What belongs to lower levels falls away when no longer mistaken for the whole. The soul does not force its way upward. It returns by remembering what it has never ceased to depend on. From above, the coherence of this vision comes into view. Middle Platonism and Neoplatonism turn philosophy into a spiritual itinerary. Truth is not only discovered, but rejoined. Knowledge, ethics, and metaphysics converge in a single direction. Back toward unity. Back toward source. As Aelius pauses beneath the stars, the city feels distant without vanishing. He has not escaped the world. He has located it. In that orientation, philosophy completes its task. By the end of this chapter, philosophy no longer appears as a ladder of arguments. It appears as a path of return. What Middle Platonism and Neoplatonism gain is depth. After doubt loosened certainty, and Stoicism hardened reason, spirit becomes the organizing principle again. Reality is no longer explained from the outside, but inhabited from within. Truth is not seized by definition, it is approached by orientation, participation, and simplification. Knowledge turns inward, ethics aligns the soul, and metaphysics becomes a map of ascent. What is lost is discursiveness. The farther philosophy moves toward the source, the less language can follow. Explanation gives way to silence. Distinctions dissolve. For those who seek clarity through proof, this can feel like retreat. Meaning is no longer secured by argument, but by transformation of attention. Philosophy demands not agreement, but change. With this movement, a long arc closes. Wonder becomes order. Order becomes discipline. Discipline becomes return. Power fades as an aim, replaced by alignment with what gives power to be at all. In the next journey, this inward ascent will take on a new form. Christian thought will absorb Neoplatonic vision and push it further, into darkness as well as light. With Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite, philosophy will learn to speak by unsaying, to know by unknowing, and to approach the source not only through illumination, but through negation itself. If this series has sparked your interest and you wish to delve deeper into the topics discussed, I invite you to the source from which it originates. This book takes you on a journey from the 7 sages of antiquity through the modern revolution with Kant and Hegel to the contemporary philosophical dilemmas of the 20th and 21st centuries. In the book, you will find significantly more details than I could present in the film, as well as space for your own reflection at your own pace. It is this very book that forms the foundation of the entire series you are watching. If you wish to explore the history of philosophy in its full version, get it on Amazon. The link is in the description of this video.